Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Our friend Neo is off today. He's dealing with a death in the family of the mother of his son, and so he'll be back next week. And Debbie's still, of course, dealing with the recovery from her surgery, and we're hoping we're going to get back from, hear back from her sometime in the next couple of weeks. But she's still trying to get her voice back. Last I heard, she could talk for about 5 minutes, and then she would go hoarse. So we'll give her a little more chance to heal after that, because that was a pretty significant surgery that she went through. But we do have a guest. I do have a guest joining me today, and his name is Dr. Benjamin Ritter. And Ben has, as so many people who have been on this show, Ben has one of those really interesting storylines about how he got to where he is. And he's made it his mission in life to basically help people with their careers, to help people discover what their passions are and figure out how to navigate to them. And he's going to share some of that stuff with us today. So Ben, thank you for joining me on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing very, very, very well. Very good. And I have to say, it's funny how seeing the words, daily dose of happy adds that daily dose of happy even.
Right?
Like a reminder of, I probably need a sign in my room to say something like, be happy, or here's some happy, or here's, it's just so incredible how it's like just this reminder, and how we can use those reminders to influence how we feel each and every single day.
In fact, that was part of the reason why I made that the subtitle. Part of it, I told you briefly the story of how the whole podcast got started before we got started here. And what happened after I reached that point that I told you about, where I pretty much felt like I'd covered in depth how law of attraction works, and I wanted to expand the podcast. That's roughly around the time when I started thinking about what the subtitle would be. And I realized the subtitle had to be reflective of what it was I wanted to do overall with the show. So I said, well, what do I want to do with the show? And I realized, well, I was doing it to make myself happy, and I was hoping everybody else would get happy at the same time. So why not make it every episode that I'm just trying to help everybody feel better? And since then, that's been like my driving goal. And boy, it's one of those goals that just talk about having a passion that fuels you. Every single show, I feel better. Every single show, my co-host feels better. My guests feel better. My listeners feel better. I get emails from people saying, oh, I love the show. Like, whoa, I mean, how much more juice do you want than that, right?
It's absolutely beautiful. I was just reflecting on, I used that kind of symbolism of being in a hole and, believing that you can climb out of it. I was also thinking about, because I guess I'm on this trail now of digging holes, where you can dig a hole and think it's a chore or a punishment, and it's an arduous, terrible, hard task, or you can dig the hole and you can be happy about it and have fun with it and make it a game. And it's just this perception of what we're doing. Do you want to perceive things in a negative light and that they're disastrous and stressful and frustrating? Or do you want to have this frame of mind that this is good, this is helping me make progress, this is a wonderful workout, like I'm getting some sunshine? Like you can have that mindset.
We're in the first 4 minutes of the show, and you've already used my two favorite words in one sentence, or one extended sentence: mindset and perspective. I talk about that every single episode in one way or another. And here you are bringing up. So thank you. You just set the tone for the entire show, as usual. Well done.
I thought we had a crossward that we were working on. Wasn't that?
Well, that could be too. I mean, okay. I like my daily wordle. Maybe that's going to be a 5-letter word in there. I don't know. But give us your background. Tell us how you got to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah, so right now I operate in the field of organizational and talent development, as well as a leadership and career coach. So I work with individuals to help them find fulfilling work and create a career that they can love, as well as work with organizations to help them become places that people can fall in love with. A lot of coaches help people leave their organization. I like to say, well, you don't have to leave to find happiness, right? Or find fulfillment. A lot of times we are victims, and we are in shackles by our limiting beliefs and our previous stories that we have that relate to work and our career, as well as leaders that have been around us. So I like to operate in both realms. Yeah. It's helpful because that's why I went to get my doctorate in organizational leadership, because it helped me become not just a coach, but also an academic and a researcher and a consultant and an expert, and was able to publish some papers on this topic, which were a lot of fun. Honestly, I'd actually like to sit down and just read for hours. But I got to this point because I was very unhappy in my career. I was pretty reactive instead of proactive in my professional life. strangely enough, I was very proactive in my personal life. I was a coach at the time. I found who I was and my identity. I was confident. I had great relationships after years of learning how to do that. But for some reason, I never thought that I could also do that for my professional life, my job.
Now, isn't it interesting how we draw barriers like that? Yeah, it works over here, but it doesn't work over here.
We have narrow visions. We don't think that we do, but very often we need to pause and zoom out to see where, are we being consistent? Are we aligned in every bucket, in every relationship, in our career, in our personal life, in our spiritual health? Because we do things that we're good at, that we're focusing on at the time. And then in other areas of our life, we're the victim, or we have a different perception and mindset. I'm using it again. So I was in healthcare. I was working full time. I was going into work, trying not to work. I don't know if you've ever been there, but
yes, I have actually. That was before I became an entrepreneur full time. I was like, oh God, how many more of these can I do?
Oh yeah. And not, trying to avoid conversations because I didn't see the point in building relationships with people. So trying to, you're talking to someone, you're like, yep. Okay. Yep. See you later. And I was leaving work to go to the gym for 2 hours instead of actually being at work. And it was funny because I was seen as a high performer. I was promoted into the executive team, but I did not want to be there. I had one foot out the door and was constantly finding reasons why my job was not right for me and trying to do something about it in terms of find something else, but didn't have the idea of what that was and wasn't really aligned with my efforts. And then luckily I was walking into work one day and I started looking at other people and making eye contact. And I saw myself in other people. They seemed to be dreading where they were going. Yeah. They seemed like they were just walking zombies with the world on their shoulders. And it was like I was looking literally in a mirror at myself, and I woke up. I said, why am I being the victim? I'm creating this situation for myself. It's this perpetual cycle of negativity and stress and frustration that's leaking into my personal life. And what can I do about it? Oh, I did this before for my personal life. Let's do it for my professional life. So, and I get it though. I had a variety of stories in my professional life that led me to feeling like I was helpless. I wanted to be a professional soccer player when I was younger. And when I say wanted to, I meant I dedicated every single waking moment to trying to achieve this goal. And I was good. The problem was I was good, but I wasn't good enough. And so it was pretty successful in what I did, but it wasn't to the point where I was actually feeling successful. And whenever you set your sights on an external goal and you tend to base your self-confidence and sense of self based on that goal, and it's out of your control. So you're setting yourself up for failure. So that's pretty much, that was the start of not really believing in who I was and what I was capable of. And then I had another career opportunity where I was passionate about dietetics, and then my major got canceled. And then I was passionate about working in health policy, and that was during a financial crisis. And as you know, any federally funded program lost funds. So 4 different job offers were all provided to me, signed on dotted line, submitted, and they all were canceled within a week.
Wow.
So I was set up to believe that you were supposed to be disappointed in your career. So I understand why I got to where I was. But luckily, I had a moment of realization. I had an epiphany, and that's when things started to change, because that's when I took control. And I can get into that, but I'll pause because that's really when I got on the path of where I'm at today with leadership and career coaching and talent development.
Yeah, let's come back to that epiphany, because I'm pretty sure that's where we want to take this conversation. But I want to mention one thing before we go there, because you've mentioned the word passion a few times. And one thing that I've noticed, particularly among young people today, is a lack of consideration and even attention to the idea of finding passion in their work. The number one thing by far that young people entering the workforce or have been in the workforce for a short period of time is, how much money can I make and where can I make the most money? And there's a story I've told a number of times, and I'll share it with you very briefly. My soon-to-be ex-wife and I were out a few years ago on the coast of Massachusetts in a little tiny coastal town, and we were in a gift shop, and she was shopping for something, and I ended up chatting with the young lady behind the counter and learned that she was going to school near where we lived. So, oh, very good. What are you going to school for? Oh, I'm not really sure. I haven't figured out what my major is. But I've been thinking about doing this or doing that. And I said, oh, what attracts you to those? She says, well, the money. I said, well, let me suggest something to you. Have you ever thought about doing something because it feels good to you, because it's important and passionate and something that really drives you? And she kind of looked at me And she said, I've never heard anybody ever say that. And that just really, it hit me right between the eyes, because I realized that was probably not a rare exception. That was probably the rule, that so many young people had just not even heard the idea of going after their passion. So when you're talking about how you were either finding or lacking passion, I said, yeah, I love that. Let's talk about that a little bit more. And then let's get into the epiphany, because I want to hear that too.
I have a little bit of a skewed view, because the people that come to me have made a lot of money and now they're not happy. Like they want to find the thing that fulfills them. So I'm right on board, because they've been really focused on success, even though the definition of success isn't really curated towards their own success, and are realizing that they should have maybe tried to figure out what brought them meaning. And then on the other end, I have mentored some high school students who are very concerned about making the right choice for their passions. So that's really nice to see.
I'm glad to hear that, actually.
It is really stressful. And so I think in both of those situations, you don't want to be so focused on the money or professional growth. I think it's more so be curious, find things that interest you. Like, that was really great advice in what you shared, and then go exploring and pay attention to what really fills you up and what doesn't, what's hard and fun, also are hard and draining, and start exploring the paths that you feel drawn to. You can figure out how to make money in almost any industry if you want to make money, if you want to make that a focal point. But first, let's figure out what industry you want to work in and what type of work you want to do.
That's great. I love that. So tell us about the epiphany. I've been kind of hanging that out there to dry. We got to bring it in from the cold.
Well, let's get warm. Let's light the fire and let's curl up. Honestly, it's just being aware and feeling like you can make a difference in your career in the direction that you want to go. So at that point in time, it was really just me asking some pretty simple questions. What am I good at? What do I enjoy? What do I want to learn? What am I passionate about? And who are the people that I might want to work with in the future? And what are some of the companies that I might want to work with in the future? And fast forwarding, 20, 30, 40 years, what's the impact that I want to have had in this industry? What projects might I have wanted to work on? And so just, again, really simple questions that we don't tend to ask with our career. And you don't have to have exact answers, but you probably know what you don't like, and you probably know what you've liked, and you probably know what you're curious about. And at that stage in my career, when I did that audit, I realized that I was in a leadership program. I was selected for 16 months of leadership training, and I was working directly with our director of people, kind of a coach. And he was the only person that I vibed with within our organization. I felt really connected with him. And I loved the programs that he was working on. I said, this exists. This is something that people do for a living. And then in my side hustle at the time, because I was an entrepreneur then too, I've always had some sort of side hustle. I was a coach, because coaching changed my life to that point personally, not professionally yet. And so I saw the opportunity to merge both of those worlds. And initially, actually, I tried going to do it in my organization. I didn't think that the solution was starting a new company or branching off, going somewhere else, or going back and going to school to get credentialed. I think the path of least resistance tends to be the best path initially to get you started. And so I went to my boss. I said, can I work with this talent development department and this leadership program and whatever they're trying to do to increase engagement? And I got the buy-in because I was performing at my job, even though I was trying to go to, not to work. I was still meeting expectations. And I started, which is funny, and it's a whole different topic, I think. But so I went to that department. I asked to do some work with them. They said, sure, of course. It'd be hard to find something, but it was a slow start, but it was something. And I started doing some projects with them. And the mentor that I had, that director of people, was really supportive. And then sadly, we were acquired for the second time. So everything that I was working on got canceled. Yeah. People I was working with got fired. And, they tend to centralize a lot of different projects. Right. They were merging two really large health systems. So if it was old Ben, who was used to disappointments in his career, he would have allowed it just to happen and gone back to doing whatever he was doing. But this was proactive Ben. This is proactive Ben in his career. And so I decided to look for other opportunities. And I'm not an expert like I was like I am now then in terms of how to get a job. So I was not able to pivot successfully, but I did meet a lot of interesting people in the field of organizational and talent development. And that led me down the path of, well, let's go become an expert. Let's go get credentialed. So I went into a doctoral program, and while I was in that program and becoming an expert and continuing to build my network, I saw an opportunity to recreate a coaching company aligned with the brand and the change that I wanted to see in the world. So I started building a personal and professional brand, even though I didn't have a full-time professional position. And so I got out of my doctoral degree. I already had awareness in the space. I was reached out to by an organization, got my first job in learning through that organization because of my brand and because of my degree. And then over time, built my business. And since then, it's just been talent and organizational development and leadership and career coaching. And there's a lot that goes into building a business, as you know. So I've skipped over a ton. But that epiphany led to this whole new path. And to think that happened probably around 2015 when I knew the path that I wanted to go on. Mm-hmm. And it took me, I left healthcare in 2018 and built my business. I was making income at that time in 2018, but was accepted by the world of organizations and work in 2020 or 2020 when they offered me to come in as a W-2. They respected me that heavily. And now I'm an executive, head of talent development at an organization that was going to be a consulting client, building their departments from the ground up. Wow. And so it's really neat when you look back, it feels like a blink of the eye. And I've had adventures throughout then that are not just about my professional work. And it's been a really great journey. And you just need that light bulb moment, that moment of I've had enough.
And doing something about it too, and knowing what to do about it. That's a big
and
piece.
Believing.
Yeah.
Believing that you can and that it's within your control and acting as if, and, making sure that, there's such a power in intention. I'm preaching here, okay? Cause I'm sure this is just the law of attraction.
Yeah. You're not going to have any problem with that argument
here. When you set your sights on something, when you live true to your values and you share that with the people around you, something magical happens. Like the world starts, it's almost like puzzle pieces that start coming together. The world starts moving in alignment with the path that you want to create for yourself. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to try hard. I've had, tens of thousands of unanswered connection requests and emails and job applications and sales calls that went nowhere and, workshops that turned into nothing. But it's the consistency of your intention as well as your effort.
Great point. I like to underline that. If there was a way to verbally underline something, I would underline that because that's really, really important. Because what you're really talking about is persistence.
And having fun along the way. Yeah. Persistence and having fun along the way.
Yeah. Let's talk about, the way that you learned this, because you said you had your epiphany and you also had some success outside of professional life through your personal life, through coaching, and that the coaching kind of led you into what you're doing now, because you're also doing coaching now. But let's talk about that journey, that part of the journey, because I think that's where a lot of people are very easily derailed, shall we say, because either there's information that they lack, or there is, and to me, this is a big part of it, there's lack of personal belief in themselves. You've been mentioning belief. Well, one of the key beliefs that you have to have is belief in yourself, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your self-knowledge, all that kind of thing. In fact, the two keys that I like to focus on quite often in terms of achieving any kind of success in life, career or otherwise, are self-confidence, self-belief, and your social connections, because my belief is that combination are really the foundation upon which any kind of success are achieved. And there's actually data to back that as well. But from your perspective, as you were learning this, how did you pull all that together?
Well, we skipped over how I got into coaching, which I kind of hinted at. When I lost soccer, I lost myself. And just to kind of reiterate, I woke up, I practiced, afternoon, practiced, evening, I practiced, watched on TV. It's like literally, that's all I watched as a program. There was no,
you were living it.
There were videotapes. I didn't
Yeah.
invest in social relationships unless I was practicing with them on the field. And it was everything. And in terms of it, I went against the grain because I knew it wasn't working, but I decided to make it work. And it became something that I almost didn't believe in myself. And that was the issue. I had an internal struggle of disbelief, and that led to a lack of self-confidence. And so basically when I lost soccer, I lost myself, and I had the choice to stay in that hole or to climb out. And I had to learn who I was. I had to learn how to develop confidence. I had.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Dr. Ben? We have a screen freeze up.
At the moment.
Oh, there he is. We just lost you for a minute, but now you're back.
Where did you lose me?
Why don't you just start that segment again? I think we had a piece of it, but you might as well just start again.
Longer story shorter. Long story short, I basically lost who I was, and I had no identity of self. And so I had to learn how to find myself. And luckily there was Ask Jeeves, or there was some sort of search engine. And
I remember that one, by the way, Ask Jeeves. Yeah.
I would just type in I would go to Barnes and Noble, I'd go to the library, type in online, just how to create confidence. And that led me down into the world of coaching, right? How to win friends and influence people, or influence and persuasion, and learning improv from Impro, and a variety of different books and resources. Reframing by Richard Bandler, Frogs and the Princes, a lot of really great books. So, and social psych, behavioral psychology, and I loved it. It was why I loved it, because it worked, and it changed my life, because I was able to finally step out of my comfort zone, become uncomfortable, and start growing. And through those personal pursuits, I was happy. 4.5 years later, I was happy. I was living my life. I was exploring. I was an adventurer. And I was at a local bar one day, and someone stopped me and they go, "Hey, I see what you're doing." And what he meant by that is I was by myself talking to people, which not a lot of people do. And he goes, "You need to meet my boss." And so the next day I was sitting around a table at that same bar with a whole team, and they ended up hiring me to be a nationwide men's coach.
Wow.
To help people develop confidence and to learn how to just be social. And about a year later, I didn't really enjoy their business practices. I decided, though, I still had something to give to the world. So I wrote a book, and then realized that no one's going to buy your book if they don't know who you are.
This is true.
Yeah. So then I learned how to build a brand, because I said, well, I got to learn how to build a brand. And so I did a bunch of in-person events. I created a podcast. I wrote blogs. I wrote for some pretty well-known online publications. And so coaching naturally evolved through my own personal pursuits of self. And, that also ended in a story of, why am I doing this? Because I went along for the ride. I never asked myself if I truly wanted coaching to be a profession.
Really?
I never asked myself what type of coach I wanted to be. And so that led to me, when I left healthcare, I also closed down the business that I had at the time, because it was sad. It was over 5 years of material and content that I erased off the internet as much as possible, because it was misaligned with who I wanted to be as a professional. And, but so that epiphany came because I did all that pre-work. I did the 4.5 years of self work, and then, well, you're always working on yourself, but then 5 years of doing that work, like life coaching and dating coaching and such, on my own. And so when I finally connect the dots, the neurons fired in another direction in my professional life, it's like the floodgates opened. I was able to utilize all the information I had from other areas of my life in my career.
You said something interesting. You're always working on self-development. And you know what the first thought was that went into my mind was? Not everybody is.
That's true.
I was kind of looking around at the population and knowing people. I mean, certainly people in my circles, like listeners and co-hosts and guests and people outside the podcast, almost uniformly, all of them are doing some form of self-development most of the time. But I look at the broader culture and I say to myself, there may be people out there who need to, There may be people out there who want to but don't know how to, but there are an awful lot of people who just really aren't doing much of anything. They're just kind of existing day to day.
That is very true. And I had this thought actually when I was in health policy, because behavioral change is so difficult. Some people wanted to change, some people didn't. Or some people didn't know they could change. And I was like, okay, so behavioral change is really difficult. Let's just change policy. We'll force everyone to change.
Oh yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. And then I realized that there's a little bit of bureaucracy, that little
Just
thing,
a bit, yeah.
and competing interests. And yeah, it's fine if you're happy, or, it's like, if someone doesn't know that they could be doing something else, more power to you. There's power in that. I want to say ignorance in a way. And it's not really ignorance, because if you're happy, you're happy, right? Even the people that are working on themselves are like, I'm just trying to be happy. Like, can you find someone that's happy, that's not working on themselves and not striving to open a mega $1 million business, something like that? You're like, I should give them an award. Like, I travel the world and I see individuals that just see happy all the time, and they have such less. And it's like, because happiness doesn't come from what you have.
It's true. Well, and the other thing I've been kind of focusing on quite a bit the last couple of years here on the show, and in my own life, is learning to appreciate those who aren't all that happy, who aren't doing any work on themselves, and recognizing that's just not where they're at yet. There are a number of factors involved, but one major factor is, I think, before anyone is willing to really look at themselves, do that internal look, that one that we've all been avoiding for all these years until we finally do the internal look. Until that happens, they haven't, I don't want to say this negatively, but I don't know the way to say it. They haven't hit bottom yet. They haven't reached the point where they're in enough discomfort that it actually makes sense for them to stop and say, you know what, this isn't working for me. I need to do something different.
And as you said, they haven't hit a level of discomfort.
Yeah.
Because there is a level of discomfort that is totally acceptable and that people are happy with, because they know what to expect. And there's enough things in life that allow them to be content with where they're at. There's no one right way to live. I just would say, please don't do anything wrong to anybody else. As long as you're living for yourself, live for yourself. So if you are totally fine, living the way that you are, then I'm not someone to walk up and judge you for it. And if you're happy, then you've achieved something that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah,
I think,
sure.
One of the worst things that we can do, I think, is try to impress our beliefs on other people that are living their own life in a way that fulfills them.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's take the case of somebody who has sought you out for your coaching. In fact, you have a master class too. We should mention that too. And I took it down as how to create the career that you love, but I know you have a longer title. So you give us a little bit about that, but also to kind of take us through, somebody's trying to change their career, or they're trying to improve their career, or they're trying to figure out what their career is. I mean, what are like the initial steps that you take?
So I created a framework called the 3 C's of self-leadership. And they're the underlying characteristics that anyone needs to take action towards some sort of change that they want to create for themselves. And it applies for your career as well. So they're clarity, confidence, and control. So clarity, you need to know where you want to go, of course, right? What's your vision for your professional life as well as your personal life, because they intersect. And then you need to know how that vision turns into goals, which then we can create daily actions to help you achieve those goals so that you can achieve that vision that you want to work towards. Now, we want to make sure that these align with your values, because how you do something is not as important as why you do it, because the how is not exactly, like, the outcome from the how isn't exactly within your control. So if you want to get promoted or this other position, or you have this type of lifestyle, there's a bunch of different branches of life that you can take to get there. And so we need to build a level of self-leadership that says, if this branch doesn't work, I can try a different branch, and I'm still doing something that aligns with who I am and that I can find fulfillment in. Clarity turns into confidence. So part of confidence is knowing where you want to go and who you are. If you ever walked into a networking situation and you didn't know how to answer, tell me about yourself. well, then you understand what I mean by lack of confidence comes from not knowing who you are.
Yeah, sure.
So confidence involves self-efficacy and self-esteem. So it's the belief in your skills and the belief in yourself. So when I work with individuals in their career, we work on most people that don't know what they want to do in their career tend to have some limiting beliefs about their level of success as well as their skills, especially leaders that I've worked with. I'm talking about COOs, CEOs, like they're sitting there doubting their leadership skills and they haven't really explored the successes in their background and the milestones and their defining moments throughout their career. And so,
which is kind of odd, by the way.
Yeah.
I just interrupt you. I mean, I think most people who look up at the CEOs and the COOs and so forth, they say, "Oh, they got it all together," and you're saying, "No, they don't have it all together." That's kind of new information for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's anyone you look up to for whatever reason. It's because you're choosing to pick out memories or moments where they were a certain type, right? They lived into the perception of what you think a CEO is or something like that. Or even you can take this to social media, you're looking at their highlight reel and people won't probably share with you that there's someone that's making 10 times more than you is worried about money, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
Right? Or someone that seems to have a great family and relationships is estranged from their kids and is not having a positive relationship with the person that they're with. Or that they don't know how they got to where they are today and they doubt their success and that they think they're an imposter. These are things that go through executive leaders' minds all the time.
It's very interesting that you're saying that from a lot of different perspectives, but from the perspective that I'm looking at right now in my own mind, it's really interesting because what we're really doing is we're leveling the population in a way that most people really don't bring themselves to do. And recognize that it doesn't really matter what your station is in life. It really doesn't matter. We're all still people trying to navigate through a world that, we arrived in without a manual. And we're trying to figure out what that manual was supposed to look like. And we're writing it along the way.
Very true. We like to think that we know what the next chapters are going to be, but it's good to have some direction, but we still don't know what the pages are going to say.
That's true. Yeah. And that's disconcerting. But then again, that's also what the excitement of the journey is. It's all kind of mixed in together. Life is, it's a combination of vulnerability and the excitement that goes along with it, and whether or not we're going to embrace that vulnerability or hide from it.
Mm-hmm. And be excited about it.
And,
So then after we work on confidence, then they're more likely to take action. So we look at control. So what is it that, how do we take back control of your career? So we utilize your vision, your goals, your confidence to take action. So what is your intention each and every single day? How are you showing up? Do you act in a way where you are acting as if and believe that what you want to accomplish can accomplish? So who are you networking with? Are you connecting with? Are you applying for jobs? What is your professional brand? Are you posting on LinkedIn? Like there's little actions that come with actually believing in yourself and having goals. Launching a business, having sales calls, etc. But it's all about what are you doing that is within your control to take control. That also can mean, are you spending time with people that are draining you? Or are you spending time with people that energize you? So it's really also about your environment. And those three things, when it comes to trying to create a career that you can love, you then have that foundation and there's all the things that relate to that. So are you, working on things that you love? Are you working with people that you love? Have you found the meaning with your work? Are you in a job that aligns with your career sweet spot? So there's a bunch of different things that relate to getting the job, but without those three C's, nothing is possible.
So clarity, confidence, and control. I love the fact that you put clarity first, by the way. I really like that because clarity is the basis for everything that's high vibrational, really.
I feel stuck. Great. You feel stuck because of something you're not able to see clearly. Let's talk about that.
I'm hearing something that I need to go check in the middle of doing a podcast, of course. So I'm going to give you a question so you can talk while I go check on it. I think I hear a cat in distress, but, so we've started with the CCs, the three C's rather, and you've kind of started to lay the foundation. But when you're working with a client, you're working with an individual, and every individual has their own differences, their own unique things that are about themselves. And so this may be kind of a hard question to answer, but how do you proceed from there? I mean, is it literally, unique to that individual, or are there some more general structural approaches you can take with just about everybody?
So I want to make sure that you can check on that cat. So I will.
I'll be back in about 30 seconds.
Okay. So to everybody listening, everyone is unique. So coaching is individualized and focused on the specific person. But there are exercises and worksheets that individuals can do to fill in with their own experiences that lead to incredible outcomes. So the questions can be similar, but the outcomes and the information will be different. Also, coaching in itself is a very individualized process. And so what I was saying was that coaching is individualized. So if I'm on a session with you, I'm asking you questions that are based on what you're sharing with me. But a lot of times when I'm working with an individual, they have similar career goals. And so there are certain questions that you can ask to lead to information that can help them make progress that's individualized and personalized to them. But those questions may be similar. So if someone's doing a visioning exercise, then those questions about their vision are going to be similar initially to get the information that we need to ask questions that focus on them specifically.
That's great. I love that. And by the way, the cat's okay. He's fine. He has a slight asthma problem, so I have to check up to make sure if he's coughing, is he clearing his lungs and all that stuff taken care of. He's okay. He's fine.
I'm happy to hear that. I have a cat as well.
You do? Okay. Yeah.
Dog, cat, and turtle. So I have a little home.
Oh, you got a combination. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I love what you're saying there. And, I like that you're, helping people to kind of, I call that zeroing in. You're zeroing in on what their particular situation is, but you're doing it in a way that applies to a number of different people. Where exactly in your mind, though, do you bring the clarity piece in? Because again, that was the part that as soon as you said the first C, I said, yes, that resonated.
First thing we do.
It really is.
First thing we do. And even if you think you know what you want, we double check.
It's easy to mess up on that one.
Yeah. And it's once you're going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So you make sure if someone even is really clear on what they want to do, you ask about what the motivating factors are with that. Like, where does that come from? Where is it sourced? What they want to achieve with it, why they feel that they have to do that. Like, what about something else? You just really take the time to ensure that they are sure on where they want to go. And one of my favorite exercises to do with clients is actually a values when you exercise. You explore, define, and align someone's values to what they want to accomplish in their life. And when you have those, and you can't really get to values first, you have to build up to them through your vision and your goals.
Sure.
Because it's a little bit more, a lot of values exercises are very surface level, so you have to make sure that you're going a couple layers deep. But they, once you have those, then you can be pretty sure on where you're going, because you can always then assess whatever actions and decisions you're making based on your values. Yeah,
that's true. That really does nail it. The other thing too about clarity, from a vibrational perspective, clarity is very high vibrational. So when you see things in your life, or when you see anything, when you observe anything with clarity, you're observing it from a position of appreciation, even a joyful perspective, at the very least an optimistic perspective. And when you do that, you see more. I think that's why we call it clarity. The clarity of vision, the clarity of understanding. That's really the way I look at it. The clarity of understanding is truly greater when you're feeling clear. And if you're not feeling that clarity, well, as a coach, I'm sure you're able to detect it fairly quickly, because you can pretty much see how far or how little the depth of that clarity is just from what they tell you. But even more than that, from the perspective of the person who is either experiencing or not experiencing the clarity, it makes all the difference in terms of, first of all, are they going to feel confident? Second of all, are they going to feel like they can redo their career? Are they going to feel like that working with a coach is going to make a difference? Are they feeling like that anything that they do is actually going to be effective? It's going to produce results that they want? Or are they caught up in some sort of you mentioned limiting beliefs. Are they caught in a limiting belief that says, well, it doesn't matter what I'm going to do. It's going to be a failure anyway. So why the heck am I doing this stupid thing? It's a dumb exercise anyway.
All great points. Points.
God, it's just, it is the most important thing. And I don't know about you. I think one of the hardest things about clarity is while you're trying to get there, trying to figure out, have I gotten there yet? How clear am I yet? I think it's one of the reasons why it's good to have a coach, because you can get that outside perspective. But it can be a challenge. There were times when I was like climbing my own scale, so to speak, where I thought, okay, I've achieved a level of clarity. Now I'm beginning to see. And then, a week later, I was like, whoa, boy, I wasn't even close. Look how much more I can see now, how much more I can understand now. I mean, how clear is clear?
Yeah. The moment you change your social group or even location or environment or organization, all of a sudden you have more information. So you always want to have that curious mindset, always understand that you're exploring. And a coach can be helpful as well because it helps you see past your own perspective.
Yeah. Something else that a coach does, I think, is a coach grounds you in a sense. That's almost not the right word because we ground ourselves, but returns you to center. It refocuses your attention back to, okay, here's the essential of what's going on in your life. Because we are, like you said, we're curious, but that curiosity also is kind of a two-edged sword. On the one hand, we're curious, ideally curious about, where's the next step, where's the next growth piece and so forth. But we also get very easily distracted by shiny things and by, here's an idea. I'm going to go off and, on this tangent for a while and I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. And what was I doing again? I forgot where I was.
Yeah, especially when you're searching for a job and all of a sudden someone comes up to you with an opportunity, or if you're really focused in one area of your life, then someone comes up with a way to make some money and all of a sudden you're jumping at it. It's kind of the sparkly object syndrome, and a coach can go, hold on a second. This is starting to become a theme. Like, what is it that you really wanted to focus on again? What is important about this new thing? Because if it's really easy to get distracted, especially if we're not 100% bought into the direction that we're going. That's why clarity is so important. Now, I work with individuals that are on the job market, that they're interviewing as well. And the moment that something doesn't work out the way that they thought it was going to work out, they can easily get discouraged.
Sure.
So you start doubting, right, your vision and where you wanted to go. And that doubt can be felt by other people. So the next time you have a job interview and you're doubting yourself in that interview, I think that influences your success. And so if you are going to be clear in something, then you understand that this is what you care about and where in the direction you want to go, despite outcomes, right? Despite the outcomes that you get.
Yeah. That's not easy to do. I mean, that's one reason why you have a coach, but that's not easy to do because when you're disappointed, you're disappointed. It's not like, oh, I'm a little bit disappointed. Okay, I'm done. No. You really wanted this thing and it didn't happen. And now you have to actually navigate through that. That could be a challenge.
Life's a challenge, I think, but it's a fun challenge. And even in the hardest moments, if we look back, if you ask yourself, okay, if 5 years from now, no matter how hard whatever moment is you're going through, if 5 years from now you are not in this moment anymore, that you're somewhere else and you're going to be somewhere else, what will this moment have taught you? And life it's not easy, and I am grateful every day for where I'm at right now in mine. And I would not have been here without those hard moments.
That's another theme that I like to touch on a lot. I've done roughly 1,875 episodes now, something like that. And amazing. That's over a 10-year period. And during those 10 years, I've interviewed so many wonderful people, really great people. And I often make reference because there was only one interview that I ever did that I didn't publish because he was such a miserable person. Everything about him was just to be nasty and push your buttons and just create controversy and all this. And I won't replay that again because I've played it for a few people in the past, few listeners in the past. But I realized afterward why he was like that. When he came out of high school, he wanted to become a millionaire. He made it on his first try. He didn't go through a crash and burn cycle. He didn't have a massive failure. He didn't have a bunch of frustrations. Everything clicked. And I realized, well, if you don't have those difficult experiences, you've got nothing to share. It's kind of an eye-opener when you realize that's where the value is in a coach, in a friend, in a confidant, in a mentor. Cause not that they know how to get there, but they've been through the rough stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, because even take this to other areas of your life. If you marry the first person that you ever really meet, and you've never had a relationship where you've been broken up with, or that was filled with drama, or you've never felt heartbreak, how can you be sure that the person that you're with is real in a way? Or if the first thing that you choose in terms of your career works out, and you're in that career, how do you know that it's right? It's a strange situation. Can you experience happiness without being unhappy? Can you experience fulfillment without being unfulfilled? Can you experience love without without being unloved? And, I think you can in certain instances. But what does that result in?
We use that polarity. The polarity is valuable to us. I mean, that's what I call that. Without the darkness, you don't have light, and all that kind of stuff. Those polarity moments, I like the way Abraham Hicks says it. They show you what it is that you don't want, so that you can take the next step of identifying what it is that you do want.
Mm-hmm. And this individual that was unhappy, I'd say, there are people that have succeeded on their first try and been happy.
Yeah.
And so I feel that something else is going on, and something else maybe the person is in terms of how they're seeing the world. Or most of the time when we set a goal on something external and we don't know what we're going to do after it, kind of what we were talking about with our vision, we get severely disappointed. Because this was not what I thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, we look for we look for satisfaction and fulfillment in externalities. That's the way society is built. That's the way human culture is built. Virtually all human cultures, not all, but most of them are built that way. And so when we find out that it's actually a bit misleading, that's a shock. That's a surprise, because that's not what we were taught.
I think it's getting better. The mountaintop only seems like it's the top of the mountain until you've gotten there, and then you realize there's another mountain. Yeah, I think we're learning. I think it's more prominent within self-development, and so, at least I've noticed it as a key factor that what you're trying to achieve isn't going to bring you happiness. The fact that you're happy is going to bring you happiness.
Yeah. Something else that
makes it easier. By the way, it makes it easier to be happy. You're not going to discount that.
That's true. It's true.
A whole boatload of money makes it easier to be happy, but it doesn't.
No, yeah. I can't remember it was a singer from the mid 1900s. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe an Ella Fitzgerald, not sure. Who said, "I've been poor and I've been rich. I like rich a whole lot better."
I can relate.
Yep. Something though that I wanted to tie in here, and I'm curious to see what your take is going to be. I've been really interested lately in a topic that it runs under a number of different headings. I'll call it species communication. My sister gave me a book for Christmas that was published in the late 1980s called The Secret Life of Plants, and that's kind of been like my next step in the journey. One of the things that they talk about in that book is the book is basically a collection of different scientific endeavors that were done by people whose work was basically rejected by the mainstream, but they kept finding different ways that plants are interconnected. They demonstrate levels of consciousness. They demonstrate, uniqueness, individuality, affinity, and a whole bunch of stuff like this. And one of the examples was a caregiver who was experimenting, had been taking care of a particular plant, had hooked it up to a polygraph machine, lie detector machine, and then went away on a trip 200 or 300 miles away, experienced a peak moment. Actually, the peak moment was he had sex. And he had, in the midst of when he was experiencing his orgasm, he later found out from an associate that the plant had registered at the same time on the polygraph what the emotion was that he was feeling. And it was expressed on the polygraph in a form that they recognized as positive affinity, positive association. And then on the flip side, one of the experiments they did was they had two plants. One plant, a person went into the laboratory where the plants were and mutilated one of the plants in front of the other one. And then they marched a whole bunch of people, including that person, past the other plant. And as the others passed, nothing registered on the polygraph. Then the murderer comes by and the polygraph goes crazy. So here we have plants associating with humans and how humans are interacting with the plants both near and far. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, there's some massive communication going on a level that we still don't really have a handle on. I mean, how do you have a plant communicating with a human 500 miles away without, not even a telephone wire? I mean, there was no other form of visible communication through any methods that we know about. And yet the communication happened. I think that's something that happens a lot more often than we realize. I think it happens among humans too, even though we aren't fully aware of it. And I'm just curious, have you noted anything like that in your career as you've been working with individuals, helping them develop their careers? I have this suspicion that there is I guess you might call it a collection of knowledge that kind of gets by species passed along from one person to the next. Am I off base there?
Well, now I have a new area of research. So I typed in plants polygraph murder sex into my
right.
So I'm going to actually start looking this up and start reading some of those reports. Is the question more so around, do individuals learn or experience greater levels of success if they're around other people that are doing certain things, or what's the question exactly?
I guess it's more of, does person A's experience get influenced in some way by what person B did, even if they don't know person B, just because they're both pursuing very much the same kind of thing?
I have noticed that people I work with will achieve similar success around the same time. And if that's due to happenstance or the interconnectedness of us working together and, investing our time in similar ways and investing our time with ourselves and energies, then that would be a really interesting occurrence. I just can't, it's hard to identify. It's hard to say, like, this is why. I do know if you surround yourself with people that are trying to do similar things or succeed in a similar way and are intentionally showing up in a positive, with positive energy, and they're motivated, that is contagious. And
yeah, it is.
Someone's results will help someone else's results. And I think if we're all going in a similar direction, we're more likely to get in that direction.
Yeah, there's something about that similarity of direction, especially like you say, when they're kind of in the same space, so to speak, and they're kind of aware of each other, that it fuels each individual. Just seeing the other person going through the same kind of experience and then having a success, it's almost like you had the success. Very true.
As long as you don't compare yourself to that success. And again,
that's the risk, right?
Mindset, yeah.
Yeah, because you can also say, well, he can do it, but I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it can go either way. That's for sure. I'm just fascinated by this whole connectivity thing. Because I've recognized for quite some time, ever since I heard of a study that, do you know Sean Aker, one of the spokesmen of the positive psychology movement since the last 20 years or so?
I know the positive psychology movement.
Yeah,
Sean Aker rings a bell.
Sean Aker was he was a grad student at Harvard when Harvard implemented its first positive psychology department, and he has since written a book called The Happiness Advantage. He's written a couple other books since then,
yep.
and he's one of the spokespeople.
Yeah.
But he tells a story, and I've told this many times here, and so listeners, forgive me, but this is I think the most important study that's been done in the last 100 years, so that's why I keep repeating it. It's a story that it isn't even written in his book, but he tells it as part of an appearance on public TV that he did to promote the book. And after he'd done all that promotion of the book and gone through his main points, like kind of like a TED talk, but he was doing it on public television. He had like an addendum at the end. And in the addendum, he said he had done this study that I've never seen him write down anywhere. This is kind of like my law of attraction thing. I keep putting it out there, hoping he'll finally write it down and publish it somewhere. But he talks about the study that he did at Harvard. He was trying to figure out how to help those type A, overworked, overstressed Harvard students to feel better about their prospects. And, they all had their own goals, their measures of success and so forth. And he wanted to help them realize, if you can just believe more in yourself and work on yourself, you can get there. And maybe I can give you a pointer that shows you how you're going to be able to predict whether you're getting there with whatever it is that you're doing. So he put this whole survey together, and I guess about 1/5 of the population at Harvard took the survey. And he had put together, I don't know how long it was. I think I got the impression it was like over 100 questions on this survey. And there was one question he threw in as an afterthought, and it was the only one that he found correlation on. He asked questions about, family background and study habits and, what their curriculum was and what they were trying to do with their lives. What kind of career are they trying to become entrepreneurs? All these, he couldn't find any correlations except for this one. And the one was social connectedness. And what amazed him was that the correlation was 0.7, which for non-statisticians means that one factor is 70% predictive of your success in life. And I heard that and I said, oh my God. One factor, 70% predictive of your success in life or failure, depending on, how good or how not good your social connections are. From that point on, I became intrigued by this whole idea of connection. That's one of the reasons I'm so interested in this book that I was telling you about, because I'm realizing connection is more than just, going to a networking event, which is very important, going to a networking event and making friends at a networking event. It's all the different ways that we connect to other people. And I just get this feeling that in any area of life, in this case, we're talking about pursuing a career path, those connections or lack thereof show up in such a myriad of ways in what we're experiencing, how we're experiencing it, what results we get, how we evaluate those results. And then when we have those really bad crash and burn moments, how we navigate through those crash and burn moments.
Yeah, social relationships are the only real currency that we have. You could survive your entire life with just on relationships. You could have everything that you needed. And if you think about it, in the past, relationships community was everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like you go back in time. You had your place in the community. Everyone helped each other and worked for each other. There was not someone there was no introvert, right? There was no one not doing anything for the community, or you would be outcasted.
Right.
You would not be part of the community. And there's something to be said too, why there's so many inner city programs where they have mentors that have been from that community and achieved something outside that community, come back and tell people that that's what happened, because you believe that it's possible. And then now they're exposed to someone where it's happened for them. And all of a sudden the chances that it happens for them exponentially increase. So I don't even need to see that study, because I know it exists. I know it's a reality. Or how many times have you heard your network is your net worth? It's a little overplayed by now, but it is so true.
I've heard cliches like that all my life, and I don't think I totally believed it until I heard that study. That study just kind of brought it home for me. I knew that there was some value to it. Obviously, people who networked did better, but I had no idea it was that important, as important as it is. It's just
amazing.
Massive. Yeah, really something. I got to tell you, Ben, this has been a fun visit. Really interesting to hear your perspective. I love the way you present yourself, because everything is very low key. In other words, it's obvious there's no drama in any of this. And so much that happens in life is drama based, and you're not bringing any drama in. I mean, you're letting the experience be the drama, perhaps, but you're not introducing any drama into it. I just want to commend you on that. I think that's fabulous. But before we go, first of all, tell people about your course. We got to know more about the course, and then tell people how they find you.
I have to share once. I had a leader when I was working in healthcare, which said I need to be more like this other person that worked there, because I was like this. I would be the calm in the storm. And it's something that I've always been, I think, after my own personal journey and development. And I appreciate you calling that out and mentioning that. So the course itself Which, by the way, now people commend that instead of say that it's something that needs to change.
Thank goodness.
It tends to be that people sometimes think it needs. What I found to be the case is that people need it to change because they don't feel comfortable themselves. And so they're around an energy that is calming with them, and it can be calming for others, but for other people, it could be disconcerting. It could be uncomfortable because they don't understand it.
Right.
So the course itself is a distillation of a 6-week one-on-one coaching program that I was able to fit into 2 hours of recorded content.
Wow.
And this is content. This is like the most important pieces that I've shared with clients over the years. And then along with that, 25 pages of worksheets and exercises to go along with that content to ensure that people are able to do the reflection they need to find the clarity within their career, to understand how to get that next job, and to really ensure that they're fulfilled professionally. And so 2 hours of content, about 25 pages worth of exercises, all in a masterclass course with some bonus modules with some frequently asked questions. And the course is how to be the leader of your own career and create a career that you can love.
And how do they find it?
You can go to liveforyourselfconsulting.com and it'll pop up. It'll be there at the top, course or masterclass. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Just say hi, Dr. Benjamin Ritter. Let me know that you heard this episode and I can provide the link too.
Excellent. And we'll make sure we'll include a link in the show notes to the website too, so you can find that as easily as possible. One last thing I need to tell you too before we part company for the day. Like so many people who have come onto this program, you are a giver in a big way. And one of the things that I think tends to kind of fall through the cracks with givers is recognizing all the people that they help that they don't know anything about. I mean, you talk to people here on this podcast, you talk to people through your writings, through your courses, through your corporate exposures and so forth. And you meet many of them, but there are many of them that you never even hear about. You don't even know about them. Many people you'll never meet, you'll never see, and yet you're touching their lives and helping them in ways you didn't know about. So I think it's important to recognize that on their behalf. Thank you for what you've been doing. Thank you for what you're continuing to do. Thank you for what you've been contributing, because you're making this a better world.
Well, that fills my heart up even more than this episode did. So thank you.
Glad to have done it. Thank you very much.
Same for you as well. I'm accepting that. I'm internalizing it. And I'm also sharing it.
I appreciate that.
And goes for you and your work.
So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.